right now, it feels so saturated. It doesn't feel, it actually is saturated. But it does feel like everyone is saying the same thing. When you're scrolling on social media, it's like everyone is selling something, and the language just feels so the same. And so, how do you stand out? How do your people find you? What is it that is unique to you and your business?
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Welcome to Represented, the podcast. I'm Aniki Shuru, racial equity coach for online business owners who want to be intentionally inclusive by building a business that is racially equitable. I created this podcast to normalize a conversation around racial inclusion so that fear is no longer the barrier that gets in the way of doing this work. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Whether you're taking your first steps or you're well-versed in the journey towards racial equity, this space is for you. So welcome home, friend. Let's get started.
From coast to coast, around the globe, we are represented.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Represented Podcast. Have you been enjoying the guest episodes? I have been loving them, and a few of you have slid into my DMs letting me know, Annie, the guests that you're bringing are phenomenal. Thank you so much for letting me know. And you know what you can do? You can actually go ahead and leave me a review because that allows us to reach so many more people. They can get to know about this podcast and they can get the value that you're getting. And the more people here, the more we are able to have an impact with this work of racial equity. Now, today's episode, my friend, is a solo episode, and it's been a minute since I've done this. I have missed this. I have missed being in my space and my zone of teaching, educating, and I thought this week, my students inside the current round of Represented, this is round number 10, and we're covering module 3 at the point, or rather at the time of recording this. And in module 3, we're talking about conscious inclusion. And one of the things that they're learning about how to be consciously inclusive is how to put together an inclusion statement. And so today we're talking about why inclusive brands make this statement a priority. And this statement, again, that I'm talking about is an inclusion statement. Whether you have one, or perhaps you're thinking, gosh, it's been a little while, Annie. I created one a couple of years ago. I haven't gone back to review it. This episode is really going to serve you well. Or you're like, Annie, that is one of the things that has been on my to-do list forever. I don't even know where to begin. I've had a look at some, inclusion statements that I think are really good, but I struggle as to how to make it personal to me and my business. Well, I have you, I've got you, and this is what this episode is all about. So I'll be sharing with you what an inclusion statement is, why having an inclusion statement as a business owner is a non-negotiable, what makes an effective and impactful inclusion statement? And please stick around to the end because I have a very exciting Black Friday offer you do not want to miss. And so, when it comes to an inclusion statement, it goes by many names. And if you've been, having a little bit of a scroll online and there are businesses that you follow and you've looked at their statements, they go by different names. Some are diversity, equity, and inclusion statements. Others are ethics and inclusion statement, justice and equity, equity and inclusivity statement, belonging statement. And so there are many names that it comes under. The main thing to remember is that whatever you call your statement, it has to be one that resonates with you personally and is true to what you are actually talking about. So it's not something that you've just copied or seen from somebody else and you're like, oh, my coach has such a great inclusion statement. The title she uses to describe it is what I want to use, and this is what I want to call it. Take some time to really think about what you're creating, what you want to call it, and does it resonate with you and what you're creating? And so let's begin. What is an inclusion statement? It is a powerful way to convey your values of what you believe in and stand for, as well as the commitment you are making about how you are going to show up in your business and be of service, in particular to people who hold marginalized identities. Hence, why you're calling it an inclusion statement or a belonging statement or a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. It is very much to capture those people who have been excluded. And so you want to make sure that when you're putting this together, that is who you have in mind. And so the best place to begin when you're thinking about your inclusion statement is to list down your values. What are the things that are most important to you as a human? For your brand, what are the things that are so important to you? A couple of examples here are, it could be integrity. Integrity is something that is so pivotal in your business, how you're showing up, how you're serving. It could be equity, that you want to ensure that everybody you serve is served in a way that is equitable, such that they have access to you, they have access to your services, that you're not just serving a certain group of people who they're the only ones who can access your product. Yes, I understand about niching and about pricing things at a particular price point, those high ticket items, but that doesn't mean that you cannot be equitable in doing that. Other values could be compassion, excellence, belonging, courage. So take the time to list down what your values are. And an important thing to remember is that an inclusion statement should grow and adapt as your business continues to evolve. How your business was 3, 4 years ago is probably not what it is today. So if you already have an inclusion statement, take a moment to go back, review it, and see the things that I've shared there. Are they still true to where I am today? Is there more work that I have done that I need to include in that statement? Have some things changed? Maybe there were things that I believed in, that I subscribed to, but now my thought process has changed, and those things, I no longer articulate them in that way. My thought process has evolved. What is that? Articulate that for us. And so, an inclusion statement is never done and dusted. You never just do it and forget about it. It needs to be something that you keep coming back to from time to time so that it can stay relevant, it can stay up to date. And when people come onto your platform, when they find you and they get to read your inclusion statement, it's actually something that is up to date. And it's not that they're looking back and going like, oh, she wrote this in 2020. It doesn't seem to align with how she's showing up or the work that she's doing. Yeah, this doesn't seem like it is up to date or even genuine. It could be something that may come across as though it was created to look like the business is inclusive, but perhaps it is not. So be sure to keep coming back to your inclusion statement to make sure it is up to date with where you are. One of the other things that I witness when it comes to the preparing and the making of an inclusion statement is there's a lot of hesitation from online business owners, feeling like it has to be perfect, Annie. I don't want to get this wrong. I'm putting myself out there, I'm putting my values out there, and however I write it, I don't want it to come across and to be scrutinized and for me to be put out there like to be judged. And so when we put this together, Annie, I want it to really be perfect. And as you know, perfection is the enemy of progress. And when we try to perfect something, it actually causes us to slow down. And we cannot get to create that thing because we are striving for perfection. And perfection is not something that we ever get to. Perfection is something that gets in the way. And so, what we need to do is put perfection to the side and really look at this exercise of writing this inclusion statement as simply putting your values out there so that your people can find you, so that it resonates with the clients with whom those values will mean something to. And so let's talk about now why every business needs an inclusion statement. And I also want you to take a moment and think about the businesses that you are engaging with. Do they have inclusion statements? And if they do, take a moment to go and check them out and see how they feel for you. Is there something that's made you connect with this business that is articulated in their inclusion statement? If they don't have one, then this is a gap. And this is something that they need to address. And maybe you are that business that doesn't have one and you need to address this. So, why every business needs an inclusion statement is because of how personal it is. It actually sets you apart from everyone else. And oh boy, do we need that more than ever, particularly in our coaching and personal development industry. Right now, it feels so saturated. It doesn't feel, it actually is saturated. But it does feel like everyone is saying the same thing. When you're scrolling on social media, it's like everyone is selling something, and the language just feels so the same. And so, how do you stand out? How do your people find you? What is it that is unique to you and your business? That is what an inclusion statement does for you, and that is why you need to have one. The other thing is that it allows people, particularly those who are underserved, those who are underrepresented, to take a step closer to you and your business because there's a sense of feeling that they are being seen because you are articulating the things that are important to you. You are being inclusive. You're talking about potentially people who have been excluded and how your business is doing what it can to be as inclusive as it can be. And so those people who identify in that way begin to take a step closer to you and your business. They begin to pay attention to you because you are different from perhaps the other people that they have been thinking of doing business with. But there's just something that's been holding them back. There's a connection that they're still not feeling. They're wondering, will this person be someone who really understands me or at least sees me and knows that my identity has been marginalized and gets in the way of how I am served and potentially how I grow as a human. And so your inclusion statement means a lot to people who identify in that way. And I know for me as a Black woman, when I'm looking to partner, when I'm looking for somebody that I want to do business with, I spend time getting to know them. What kind of person are they? What are their values? What are the things that are important to them? And I take time to get to know them, be it through their content, how they're showing up, how they're sharing. And if they have an inclusion statement, that allows me to know so much more about them. I remember a few years ago being invited to be a guest on a podcast, and I did not know this person. They presented really well to me, but I didn't know them. I didn't know much about their podcast. I hadn't heard of it before. But what allowed me to say yes was as I was looking through their website, I came across their inclusion statement. Their inclusion statement was written so beautifully, and they spoke about the importance of anti-racism. and they spoke about the work that they were doing in that space. And I just felt like, okay, this is somebody who recognizes the importance of this work. They've invited me to come in and share about my work. I think this is going to be a conversation I would love to have with this person. And so this is going to be a yes for me. And so that's what an inclusion statement can do. The other thing it does is that it connects you with other like-hearted humans who resonate with your values. So others who may not have marginalized identities, but they share your values. And they're like, oh, I'm somebody who has an inclusion statement. I'm reading this person who has an inclusion statement as well. This is somebody I want to be in relationship with. This is somebody I want to follow. This is somebody who I potentially want to work with. This is somebody who I might want to have a partnership with or collaboration with. And it just makes that so much easier because the connection has been made through the values that you share. And now I want to talk about what makes an effective and impactful inclusion statement. For me, when I am scrolling through and I help a number of my clients to create really, really personal, um, effective, impactful, authentic statements, is really the storytelling aspect of it. You don't want to land on a statement that just feels like a copy and paste. One that, oh, like the corporate ones where it's like we're an equal employment opportunity organization, or we respect people who come from all backgrounds. We are an inclusive business. Those statements for me, they just feel like they're not personal. It's something that anybody can just grab and pop onto their, platform, their website. But take the time to make it personal. Take us on a journey that is unique to you, that brings out your vulnerabilities. Those are the things that we connect with, but is also authentic to you because when you are vulnerable, it becomes authentic. It's a kind of statement that no one else can copy and paste because guess what? It's your story. So there are three things that make an effective and impactful statement. Number one is sharing, how did you get here? I always love to hear the origin story of what is it that got you to begin to want to prioritize inclusion? What is it that made you want to do this work of anti-racism? Was there a catalyst? What was it? And for a lot of my clients, it was the public execution of George Floyd back in 2020. When they witnessed that, it was so disturbing that it was something they felt, I cannot be silent anymore. I cannot not do this work anymore. I didn't realize how important this work is. And this is work that I absolutely need to prioritize. And so that's what made them arrive here. So sharing, how did you get there? And then number two, what do you believe in? What are the things that are important to you? Being able to articulate that. I believe, for example, in a world that is just and equitable for all. Or I believe in a world where gender equity is the norm. Racial equity has been normalized. We are not trying to break through the barriers of systemic racism. We have an equitable system in play. Make that clear. Why is this important to you? Articulate that to us. Because when you do that, again, we're taking a step closer to you. We're saying, okay, I'm seeing how you got here. I'm understanding why this is important to you because you're articulating why you believe in this or what you believe in. And then number three, and perhaps this is the most important bit of having an effective and impactful inclusion statement, is what is your commitment? How have you made the commitment to how you arrived here? How have you made the commitment to what you believe in? In other words, what work have you done? Have you invested in racial equity work? Have you worked with some educators in this space? Have you invested your time? What have you done? This is the opportunity to share how you're committed to that. And also an opportunity to say, this is lifelong work. This is what I've done to date, but I know this is a journey. It's ongoing, and I'm committed to this ongoing journey. And so that is how you share an inclusion statement that is so deeply personal, that takes people on a journey, but they get to see you. They get to resonate with your values, and they get to feel a sense of, this is potentially somebody that I can work with. I have gone through different platforms and websites where I have seen inclusion statements that have just made me go like, oh my goodness, wow, this human exists. And I check out their content, and their content aligns with their inclusion statement. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm literally racing virtually to connect with them, because I just feel like there's a synchronicity there. There is a bond, and I want to be connected with them. And that is the power of having an inclusion statement. And this is why inclusive brands make this statement a priority. Now, my friend, I have a Black Friday offer. And I've been thinking of a way of supporting you further with this inclusion statement to help you create one for yourself. And I wanted to take you on a step-by-step process of how to do that. And so I have this incredible offer. It's the Inclusion Bundle, where I'm sharing my 3-hour workshop. Again, as I said, it will walk you step by step to create an effective, impactful, and authentic inclusion statement. And it talks about some of the things I've shared today, but we get into greater detail. I share examples of some of the most powerful inclusion statements I've come across, some from leaders that we know globally and respect, and some from small online business owners who have that inclusion baked into their business. And you need to know about them, and you need to read their inclusion statements that are just so powerful. Some are short, some are a little bit lengthy, but the point is they are impactful, and they're doing what they need to do. And that's not all. I'm throwing in my scholarship immersion experience, where I teach you how to create a scholarship program in a way that it will be successful, so that it's not just successful for you as the business owner who's putting it out there, but the recipients who are receiving this scholarship also go through a process where they see the success that they wish to have. Now, you will be getting these 2 workshops for the price of one. Head over to the link in the show notes for all the details. Now, this offer is only available until the 30th of November. So if I were you, I would be heading over to those show notes and clicking on that link, finding out more, and getting these workshops. They're an absolute steal. And so, until next time, my friend, take care.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review so this podcast can reach more online business owners, and together we can begin to normalize racial inclusion in the online coaching space. I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where this podcast episode was recorded, the Wiradjuri people in central New South Wales, Australia. Music produced in Nairobi, Kenya by Patrick St. P. Mbaru and Kambua Mathu. Vocals by Joanne Matata.
Represented.